Where are the other drugs going? I haven't been able to do this in so long.
What is up, Flick fans, and welcome back to my channel. Austin, what a random video for you to put out on a Wednesday. Actually, to me, it's not very random because today is the 10-year anniversary of one of my favorite movies of all time. I will not give you my official ranking because I'll probably do one of those lists later, but it's The Dark Knight. 10 years ago, today, 2008. Oh my goodness. My birthday is actually on July 21st, so I went and watched this movie for my birthday, one of the best movie experiences of my life. I loved every bit of it, and I am so excited to talk to you guys today about my ranking of my favorite on-screen Batman films that were released theatrically. And I have to say that because there have been so many straight-to-DVD Batman films that I actually like more than some of the movies on this list, but I'm just going theatrically. We're talking animated or live action. I am so excited to get into this, guys. Tomorrow evening, be on the lookout for my Equalizer 2 review, and then later on this weekend, some more lists. But right now, we are talking about all of the Batman movies, 12 of them, and let's start out with my least favorite at number 12. This movie, it's one of my least favorite films of all time, and sure, Batman is one of my favorite characters, but that doesn't mean he has some bad outings. Sometimes you swing and you miss, and that's exactly what Joel Schumacher did here. I actually watched it as a kid and enjoy it, as I did characters like Jar Jar Binks. I was young, I was like 4 years old. What am I supposed to do? But going back and watching it today, yeah, it's a pathetic attempt on the Batman character. It ruins so many of the supervillains. Poison Ivy and Arnold Schwarzenegger is Mr. Freeze. What are you doing? I'm sure they knew that, oh, okay, it's kind of going to be like a cheesy thing, we're going for the tone, but they don't just stick with that. They switch back and forth between, oh, we're going to be serious now, and we're going to be stupid now. You have bat nipples, you have bat credit cards, stupid. And sure, some of the performances are okay. Poison Ivy didn't give a bad performance, but the character, along with the entire rest of the movie, is just, oh. Next up, Joel Schumacher, you're back on this list at Batman Forever. Now, I actually don't hate Batman Forever with everything in me like I do Batman and Robin, but still going back and watching it, it's not a very good film. It's not very well made. I love Jim Carrey and what he brought to the Riddler when I was young. I was like, oh, that is so much fun, but going back and watching it now, it just didn't feel like the Riddler. But even less than that, Tommy Lee Jones's Two-Face, I don't know what he was doing because that just wasn't good. I didn't think Val Kilmer as Batman was bad, not as bad as George Clooney, but the story, the way it goes, the cheesiness aspect. Like I said, everything here is a step above Batman and Robin, but it's a step below everything else on this list. And next up, I honestly just barely like this movie more than the last, and a lot of people are going to disagree with me because I know a lot of people who love this film, and that is Batman Returns. I'm not one of those people. I don't even know if I can get this movie to fresh because going back and watching it recently within the last few months, it's like, I feel like this is more of a Tim Burton film than a Batman film, and that's fine if you like his style, but I wanted this to be a little bit different than it actually was because it's too wacky for me. I love Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman, and I love Danny DeVito as the Penguin. It's just everything surrounding that, the story, the way that the movie goes, it doesn't really work. Now, Michael Keaton comes in and kind of saves the day as the Batman that I love from the original. It's just this movie is so different from the original for me, it didn't really work, but it's one of those films I understand if it works for other people. I just don't have that nostalgia for it because, honestly, I was too afraid to watch it when I was young. Next up is the original. In the 1960s, there was a man named Adam West, and he didn't play the kind of Batman that we have now, but he did play the kind of Batman that is so much fun. It's zany, it's kooky, but the thing is about this movie, as opposed to something like Batman and Robin, it knows what it is. It sticks to that. It sticks to everything that the television show taught it, and it really does a good job of portraying the Batman that people loved in Adam West and with Burt Ward as Robin on screen. Now, do I love this movie? No, I don't love it, but I do respect it and appreciate it for what it is, and that's why I couldn't put this any lower. I know a lot of people are going to say, Austin, why you got Batman Returns below the original Batman? I'm sorry, I think this movie knew what it was, and it presented that just a little bit better. I should have made a disclaimer at the beginning of this video. Obviously, this list is very different from other people's, but here's the thing about the Batman films. Everyone really kind of has a different opinion until you get closer to the top, so I'm okay with having some lists that are completely different than other lists. I just want you guys to leave your lists in the comments below. Please tell me what you love. I'm going to tell you what I love, and right now, we are talking the most recent entry on this list, I believe, and that is Justice League. Now, here is what I'm going to say about this. This is a Batman list, right? I like this movie just a tad bit more than the next movie on this list. But since we're talking about the character of Batman, I feel as if he was presented in this one not as well as the next movie on this list, and that is why I'm putting Justice League right here. He didn't really have a scene that stood out. He was kind of more in the background than he was in the next movie on this list. And honestly, while I think Ben Affleck was good in this film, I like him as Batman. I don't really have a big problem with him. I think he was better in Batman v Superman, and that's why I'm going to put that movie a little bit higher than this one. I thought Justice League was fine. It's not great. It's not horrible. It was a mess, but it has good characters. We're not talking about the movie, though. We're talking about Batman's presence, and while it's good, it's in there, he's the leader, he just felt a bit softer than I think he should have. His character made a complete 180 from the last film, which is fine. I understand DCEU had to course correct, but I think they course corrected just a little bit too much. Now, like I said, I don't think this movie's as good because it's also somewhat of a mess, but when we're talking about Batman v Superman, Ben Affleck in this film was incredible as Batman. There, I said it, a lot of people, you are going to disagree with me, and that's fine, everybody has a different opinion, but I really did think he owned this role. Now, the movie itself, we're gonna not talk about that, we're just talking about his presence, and really, if you look at the film, he's kind of the lead because he has way more screen time than Superman. Now, if you guys haven't watched the extended cut of Batman v Superman, I kind of recommend that because I think that is a better movie. It gives more character to Superman's character, but if you've seen the original cut, you know exactly what Batman is going to bring us. I liked his character in that role. I think there's some things towards the end. If you talk about Martha, we're going to stray away from that, but right now, Ben Affleck, I think he's a good Batman. Next up, it is the original. No, that was the 60s movie. Now we're talking about the movie that came out in, I believe, 1989, and that is Batman, directed by Tim Burton. Michael Keaton really came on the scene and owned this role at the time. I have a bit of nostalgia for this movie because I used to watch it all the time as a kid. It was really my first introduction to Batman other than Batman and Robin. Now, I go back and watch the movie now. Does it hold up as well as I think some people think it holds up? In my opinion, no, but that's fine. I understand a lot of people love this movie. I still think this movie is really good. It doesn't get to that great level because there are some elements of it that I think it's too much of its time, but that's fine because it really worked. It came out, it made a huge impression on the mass media, and it really got this whole superhero thing rolling. Thank you, Batman, for doing all that you did. I think you're a good movie, just not fantastic. And beating out all of these live-action movies comes to us somewhat of a stop-motion film, and that is the Lego Batman movie. I thought Will Arnett as this character was so good in the Lego movie. Then we get his individual film. Zach Galifianakis as the Joker, what are you doing? You know what? I didn't love the voice that he gave us, but I love the relationship between him and Batman. It's probably one of the best relationships we have ever seen between Batman and the Joker. I love the introduction of Robin, all of these random characters. Look, if you don't like what they're going for in the Lego Batman movie, I don't know if you're going to get it. It's somewhat of a spoof. They spoofed all of these different villains and the music and everything, but you know what? I watched this movie. I had an absolute blast. It's fun. It's funny. It's a different take on The Dark Knight, but it's a good one. My next two are just, they're so close and they change really on a weekly basis when I'm doing my whole list on Letterboxd, but right now we are talking about Batman Mask of the Phantasm. What a fantastic animated movie. It's really one of the best portrayals we have ever seen of Batman and one of the best storylines we have ever had on the big screen, and it's a shame that it really didn't make that much money when it was released in theaters because it was for a small period of time. I love the exploration of how he became Batman, what Joker brings. Mark Hamill as the Joker is awesome. And then, of course, the brand new villain created, I believe, specifically for this movie, if I'm not wrong, was just wow. And I love this ending. One of the best endings to a Batman movie I've ever seen. If you have ever watched the animated series and not watched this movie, please watch it. Now, just barely beating out Mask of the Phantasm is a movie that I don't believe is as well told as Mask of the Phantasm, but The Dark Knight Rises holds a special place in my heart because I am such a big fan of the Christopher Nolan trilogy. Now, I know this film has had a bit of a backlash over the years. Not as many people liked it as they did when it first came out, because if you look at the audience and the critic scores, it seemed like everybody loved this movie, but the longer time has went on, the less people have liked it. I'm not really one of those people. I acknowledge that there are flaws when you talk about the nuclear bomb and how did Batman get back in the city. My argument for that is, well, he's Batman. Batman. But you know what? I look at those things, I'm like, okay, there are problems, but when we're talking about how epic this movie is, how good Tom Hardy was as Bane, whether you can or cannot hear every word that he says, I'm okay with that because this film is so realistic. It's so awesome. The big battle at the end is fantastic, and I love the twists and turns. Some of the acting is a bit questionable, but The Dark Knight Rises is one of my favorite Batman films of all time. It is so epic. And then you come to a film that used to be number 3 on my list, but the more I watch both movies, the more I'm like, okay, this is definitely a better movie. It's a more well-told story, and the ending is something that provides a lot of resolution to what they build up at the beginning of this movie, and that is Batman Begins. I love the portrayals of all of the villains, if we're talking Scarecrow or Ra's al Ghul, the twists and the turns throughout the film, seeing Batman climb that mountain and do all the things that he needed to do to become the Dark Knight, watching him train. It's a very different interpretation than we have gotten before that, and honestly, like I did with some of these other movies, when I watched this movie as a kid, because it came out in 2005, I was 10 years old, I was still used to Batman and Robin, so I watched this film and I wasn't that enamored with it. I was honestly kind of scared because it's a scary Batman, especially when he takes the gas and he gets all spooky. But you grow old, you fall in love with film like I did, and rewatching it just, it's a testament to how good of a filmmaker Christopher Nolan is, how good Christian Bale was in this role. The only thing that really bothered me about the movie was Katie Holmes, and they replaced her, so it all worked out. You bring in Maggie Gyllenhaal into the Rachel role, you have Harvey Dent and Joker make their appearances in this movie, and a lot of people say, well, it's not really a Batman movie, it's more of a Joker movie. I find it to be kind of a half and half. I'm not going to say Christian Bale is the lead of this film, but obviously Heath Ledger wasn't the lead because he got nominated for Best Supporting Actor and won, and it's a testament to how good he was in this movie, how good this movie was as a whole. What is left to say about The Dark Knight that I haven't already said? When I make my top 10 list, this will be in it, and I'm talking movies of all time. I love The Dark Knight so much. What Christopher Nolan did with this film, the way that he brings everything together that's been set up through the first movie and the beginning of this movie, the epic tone, not as epic as The Dark Knight Rises, but you don't need it to be because this Batman and Joker story, when it comes down to it, it's a small scale story with a lot of subtle elements, and if you don't watch this movie multiple times, you might miss some of those back and forths between Batman and the Joker, but you know what? I've watched this movie maybe more than any other superhero film in history. I don't want to say it because it's embarrassing. We're approaching 30 though. Not much left to say other than The Dark Knight changed the game. I love everything that it did. Happy anniversary, The Dark Knight. You should have been nominated for Best Picture. What are you doing, Academy? That's why they went from 5 to 10 movies when you're talking nominations. Fun fact, if you probably knew that. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Like I said, you will disagree, but I want to see your lists. Tell me what you love, tell me what you don't love. If I'm wrong about, say, movies like Batman Returns and The Dark Knight Rises, it's okay. Feel free to say anything you want in the comments. Just try to keep it like PG-13 because the kids and the pastors. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. Come back tomorrow and be sure to check out MovieBabbleReviews.com for some awesome article and movie-related things. Go to my Stardust page, my Letterboxd page to check out more reviews from me. You guys are the absolute best.
And I'll catch you later.